Welcome to The Archive Speaks, a podcast from the Refugee Archive. In this series, we document the journeys of refugee women who lead households, rebuild communities, and carry stories that often go unheard. These oral histories reflect the personal memories and truths of those who tell them, shaped by time, trauma, and resilience. The Refugee Archive holds space for these voices, without political alignment or editorial interference. This episode is the third part of Noor's four-part series about her lived memories of displacement. In part 2, Noor brought us into the heart of October 2023, the sounds of airstrikes, the hurried packing, the crowded shelter, and the silence around Khaled's death. It was the moment she became a mother, carrying her household forward alone. Now, in part 3, we sit with what came after, the grief and the daily realities of survival in Gaza, and the impossible choices that would eventually push Noor toward a decision no mother ever wants to face.
Now, during the war in Gaza, and after my husband Khaled was murdered, we lived in my sister's house, as I told you before. There were 13 people living in that house. During that time, we only had summer clothes that we took from our houses because we hadn't prepared for winter. We kind of didn't expect the war to last so long. When winter came, I myself and my son, we didn't have any winter clothes. We didn't have any covers and stuff like that, but thinking about it, from going from your own house, your own life, having everything that you need, and if you need something, you go ahead and you buy it, and now you can't use your own things because they're no longer here. You can't go and buy something. So at that time, I was really grateful until this very day that my sister helped us by sharing her winter clothes and her son's clothes with my son. That kind of made us a bit closer. We were close, and it made us a bit closer even. And I remember there were many things that we lost. Not only clothes, I'm not just talking about clothes that I lost. I'm talking about many things. But there was no way to replace those things. For example, we couldn't go back to our house. I couldn't go back to my house to get my belongings or to get something to remember my husband. My house was in the area called Talil Hawa. It was heavily targeted from the moment the genocide started till today. It is heavily targeted. Almost every house there, it was attacked. And until this day, they attack it multiple times. There were some neighbors that hadn't evacuated, like my neighbors in Talil Hawa around my house. They used to call us every now and then just to make sure our house is okay, is anything left or something. I remember there were 3 times during that time where they called us to tell us that my house, my in-laws' house as well, it was hit multiple times. Each time they would call, I would break down crying. I was crying for the memories I had there. I was crying for my belongings. I was crying for my husband's belongings. I cannot even have any to remember him for. There were many important documents that I haven't taken with me. There were my son's things that I haven't taken with me. There were lots of things like the memories in that house for over 6 years. I've lived there with my husband, with my in-laws, having breakfast in the front yard, my son playing soccer there. There were many, many things, many memories that we cannot relate to anymore because it was destroyed, the place was destroyed. So many personal items that I really wish that have taken with. I've taken some of my perfumes, for example. I know it sounds silly, but for me, they're very important. My furniture, my kitchen utensils, like my every part of my house, it was lost. I lost it. And for what? What have I done to deserve this? What has any Gazan done to deserve such thing? To deserve losing a family member, to losing a house, to losing their belongings? And not only that, I consider myself lucky. Just think about everything that I said. And until this very day, I consider myself lucky because others lost not only furniture or houses, they've lost all of their family members. This is really insane. And for what? What have we done to deserve this? I believe that no one deserves such treatment. No one deserves this. And eventually my house was completely destroyed. Like it was buried under rubble. No one can recover anything from it. I can no longer think or go back to my house or see anything of my belongings ever again. During this period, not only I'm talking about my house, I know some people might think it's just a house. It's not. It's part of who we are. And during this period, not only have I lost my belongings and my husband, I also lost many beloved family members, including my aunt, my father's sister. She, her husband, her daughter, her youngest daughter, and her daughter-in-law, and her grandson. Her daughter-in-law was pregnant. They were all taking shelter in a house, in an apartment, in her kid's apartment. And just in a blink of an eye, they've bombed the whole area. And we didn't know that she was there because we know that she was in her house. We were thinking that she was safe. And yet, for almost a day, we didn't know. Just thinking about this, not only that, also, we've lost my husband's aunt and all her children. My husband's aunt had 6 children, 5 sons and 1 daughter. 4 of those sons were married. They had wives. They've had 4 to 6 children. Even there's one of them had 8 children. All of them were killed in an instant. Their house was literally, they were buried under the rubble. No one could ever rescue them or take them from under the rubble. They were in North Gaza, yes, but that's not a reason for them to get killed over instantly, right? Many of those people were part of my own life. We shared memories with them. It was really, their loss was really extremely painful for me. And not only that, I had even some colleagues that I've lost during this time. And all of this was not only hard on me, but on my entire family because they had similar experiences. It was too much to take in. And that's only we're talking about losing. We're not talking about what we had to go through on our daily life.
Noor expressed how in Gaza, survival goes beyond escaping bombs to the daily battle for water, electricity, and food. Men took care of getting water from humanitarian aids, but the lines were long, and one round of fetching water wasn't enough for their family of 13. Mothers like Noor were left to improvise, washing clothes by hand, cooking over fire, and rationing what little they had, all while trying to preserve dignity, faith, and routine.
For example, water. Water was one of the worst challenges ever. Do you know that there were times, not times, but maybe very longer times that we had to drink unsafe water? not just unsafe, but undrinkable water, that we knew that it was undrinkable because when we taste it, we can tell that it's not clean for drinking. That I had to see my child drink this kind of water. And we became sick because of it, but we had to go on living, surviving. We had to go through some stomach flus, diarrheas, other illnesses, but there's no other option. And talking about food, like literally we relied mostly on canned food. Like right now you have to survive, right? But survive on what? If we're talking about the necessities of life, we had to go through a lot. They had to fight us with our necessities. They had to shorten the resources that we have. Like literally, if I'm talking about food, usually we would have like some kind of protein, like eggs, chicken and meat, because we have a lot. Like in Gaza, we're really like relying on those every single day, to be honest. We don't have lots of, vegetarians there, to be honest. I'm not saying that that's wrong or good or right. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying how we shifted to canned food. It wasn't healthy. It caused weight loss. I lost a lot of weight during that period. And so did many others in Gaza. Maybe a month in the genocide, when it started, like after a month, things started to run out. Literally, things started to run out. They don't have enough because the border was closed. People were not able to get water in Gaza, not food in Gaza, because we only have the resources that we've had. Nothing can come in and no one can come out. That was the process. Sometimes we had the privilege to buy bottled water. I'm saying a privilege because it was really expensive. And that's like a luxury for Gazans. It was to buy one bottle of water. There were many other struggles, like hygiene, for example. It was extremely difficult to find shampoo, to find soap, and other basic necessities. Everything was very expensive because they're running out. And cleanliness is very important for us, for Palestinians, for Gazans. It's very important for us, even in Islam. As practicing Muslims who pray 5 times a day, we needed to maintain hygiene constantly, which was nearly impossible. I remember some people came up with ways to even to make shampoos from scratch. Yeah, it wasn't good enough, but still they had to find a way. They try to use whatever they have to find ways of survival, literally. Whatever you have, they find a way. But still, it wasn't enough. And even we faced power outages, like not power outages, but the electricity was cut off. Literally cut off. Not from 1 month after the genocide, but after 3 days of the genocide. Because we take the electricity, we kind of have the electricity lines, or I don't know how to say it, but it comes from the Palestinian territories that Israel has the power to stop it or to turn it back on. They turned it off. They literally cut it off on Gaza. Come to think about it, at night we don't have any power, any lights. So it's even scarier for kids at night because there is going to be like bombing sounds around and missiles, and there's no light for them to see. So they're using many tactics to put fear into our hearts. Not only that, we're talking about the internet. There were sometimes the internet cuts lasted for days, not just 2 days or 3 days, for even months sometimes. They even deliberately target internet points, making the communication, the information access very difficult. We wouldn't know what's going on around us. Like after we have access to the internet, we would figure out that something had happened the week before or 2 weeks before. Another thing is that because the electricity was cut off, washing our clothes was another. I'm laughing because it's insane. It's literally insane. There was no washing machines because there was no water in the pipes, no electricity to work on. So there was no water like in the pipes. There's no electricity to work on. So the washing machines that my sister had in her apartment, it cannot work, right? So we had every single day, we need to wash our clothes by hand. Come to think of it, can you do that for a couple of days? Can you do that for a week? And not because you want to do that to maybe have the experience, maybe, but because you're in the decision that you have to do it. Like literally the chores that we had to go through, like we had to do every single day, they felt like labor. For washing our clothes, it caused blisters on our hands and severe back pain for 13 people. Think if everyone had a shower that day, how many things you have to wash a day. And like cooking on the other side, it was also a challenge. I don't know why I said it on the other side, because they're all on the same side. They're all challenges. Like everything that we went through every single day was challenges, like hardships that we need to go through. Sometimes there was no gas for us to use the stove or whatever. We had to use wood. Sometimes we had to go buy some wood so that we start a fire, like literally living in the Stone Age. And for us to cook something, like there are some things that people might not comprehend, might not understand, is that even with cooking on fire is not the same as cooking on gas. It's going to take longer. It's going to cause literally our lungs to be filled with those nasty gases that comes out. Like not only that, looking at the cooking pots that we're using, it's going to be filled with lax pots on it because of the fire. We're talking about water at the same time is a constant struggle. How can we clean that with the water is a struggle? There's no, like in the faucets, there's no water coming down. You need to go and grab some water from a place that, that has water in it. Like there was centers that they open that distributes water for us to use to wash things, for the bathroom. We need to fill up bottles of water for the bathroom, and we need to fill up like big boxes that were made for toys. These ones we had to use for the kitchen. It's various organizations that open water supply for Gazans. They kind of hire some Gazans to help them with the distribution, but it's still like to go to that center. My father would go, my 3 brothers, and it's still not enough. So they would go back and forth to get the water. And it's a real struggle to go and get it. Yeah, and you have to wait in lines to get to your turn to get some water for cooking purposes, for washing, taking a bath, for the bathroom. These things that people till this very day, they don't understand that we went through. Do you know what makes it even extremely difficult? That it remains challenging even now. Like the hardships that I've talked about, all of these, the lack of water, the lack of food, hygiene supplies, electricity, internet, cooking, fuel, like all of these remains challenging right now. It's way difficult. Not only it's difficult, but some of the supplies that we thought that it was expensive, and it was at that time, right now, like the expenses, it's 10 times more expensive than it was before. And believe me, that's not something that any family can afford.
Even before, Gaza's economy was suffocated. Jobs were scarce, which was the main reason for Khaled, Noor's late husband, to switch careers and stay in the north to earn for their living, which eventually led to his demise. By 2023, more than 80% of the population relied on humanitarian aid to survive. For Noor, whose only concern was her son's safety, the math was simple. Staying meant no future. But leaving came at a price, one she could never have afforded without the help of a Palestinian friend abroad, who stepped in to raise the funds.
Me, myself, I have a bank account, but still I didn't have much life savings. I only had like 2 months of salary, and I used it, I think, in the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks. My in-laws used to send me every now and then something to help with my son, like literally getting things for my son. They would even buy some things for my son themselves and bring it to him. And as for the rest, for food, for everything, my family took care of everything. They had their own life savings. They've put it all, like during the first 6 months or less even. They've used it all. I'm telling you, they've used it all. Like they literally were expecting, like my parents had 2 apartments in Gaza that they were going to furnish, they're going to redecorate and stuff like that. So they had the money for that saved up. And instead of doing this, they even, like, just one day before the genocide, they started talking to a designer to design the house, how is it going to be built and stuff like that, like the apartments. And they were going to start, but because of the genocide, things didn't go as planned. So the money that they have saved up for that, it all was consumed in those months. My sister and her husband had used some of theirs as well. I'm telling you, like, I'm real grateful for everyone, because me, myself, I don't know what I would do without them, literally. I wouldn't have been able to feed my son. I wouldn't have been able to feed myself even. But with their help, there was like constant help from them and from my in-laws as well. And even there is one person who reached out to me during the genocide to help out. And he was like a father of one of my tutoring students who, until I guess this very day, is helping with my family's like survival. And I'm really thankful for him for doing that.
Leaving Gaza was not just a logistical nightmare. It was an emotional one for Noor. Families had to decide who went first, who stayed behind, and who carried the children across the border. These choices split households, testing loyalties and love. Noor detailed how convincing her in-laws to let her son leave meant carrying not just her own grief, but theirs as well.
And even like from that moment, like talking about all of this and thinking about the financial struggle that I am personally in, I talk to my parents, like literally, we have like a family meeting, as they say, and we realize that with so many children being killed in Gaza, with so many things, so many struggles, I told them that I feared for my son's life. The danger was so severe that I decided that I had to evacuate and I had to take them all with me. And we talked about the evacuation system at the time, and it was very difficult because of financial constraints, the documents required, and there were many, many other challenges. Like one of the challenges that we face is the documents that we need for evacuation, because like we had literally a zero passport, which is a passport for Palestinians with no previous travel records. Now, we don't have even a zero passport. We have no passports whatsoever. None of my family members had these because we had never needed them before. Travel was very restricted in Gaza because of the blockade on it for many, many years before. So we didn't have these documents. We didn't have passports. So we learned from others that there was a company that could help with evacuation, and they required only our IDs, which we already have, thankfully. But the company was not in Gaza, it was in Egypt. And to register, you need a close relative in Egypt to help. Fortunately, my uncle, my mother's brother, was in Egypt at that time and was able to help us register. Before registering even, I had a friend who I've met like maybe like years ago. Her name is Lena. She was my mentor for a project that I wanted to start with my sister, but eventually we had to stop it because of many reasons. And ever since, she constantly check up on us. She asks, how are you? Do you need anything? And how can I help? And even during all this time, she was like, every time that we have internet, I would find her message on WhatsApp that, how are you? Do you need help? How can I help you? And I'm like, no, everything's okay, until this very moment where I told her, like, I told my parents, like, we need to reach out to her to help us with literally with the financial part for our evacuation. And she was literally ready for it. She was like, I just told her that we've made that decision. It was really hard for us, but still we have to go through it. And she was literally saying that, okay, I can help you with that. And within one day, she started a fundraiser for us on a GoFundMe. We had a GoFundMe for my whole family, for 13 members of my family. And she helped with speeding up the process. What we had to understand is how much does it cost for each person to evacuate, to even to register, to be put on a waiting list to evacuate Gaza. Each adult needed about $5,000. Each child, like about $2,500. This company is in Egypt, and it's for Palestinians, for Gazans. I'm like, it's not our currency, it's not Egypt's currency. Like, why this much? Like, in ordinary days before the genocide, I know some people who, when they wanted to travel to any other part of the world, for a VIP pass, they would need around $500 to $600 per person. Now, from $500 to $5,000 for an adult, US dollars. Like, I'm telling you, the currency is not ours, it's not Egyptian. Like, why? And not only that, they needed to be in like new bills, and you cannot send it via transfer, like a bank transfer. You cannot do that. You need to get it to them in hand, in cash, full in cash, for them to put you on a waiting list to leave Gaza. Like by that time, to think about it, by that time 4 to 6 months had passed since the genocide began. As I said, we already spent most of our life savings. Like my parents spent most of their life savings. Mine was gone in a week or two, but we kept them for basic needs like food and water. So we needed that much amount of money for our evacuation. So we did the calculations with my friend. Not only that, like we're talking about like the minimum, that's 5,000 to like 250 for a child, right? But that's nothing. To get the US dollars in Egypt, that's banned. Just think about it. It's banned in Egypt for Egyptians to get US dollars. Like, how am I going to get those US dollars in new bills, even in cash, to the company from the fundraiser? I know it's overpriced, but we literally had nothing. They took advantage of the situation we are in. Like the whole world is against us right now. Me thinking about all of this in that moment, I was literally thinking that the whole world is against us. Like, why? I remember that Gazans used to say, literally, it was said to my face even, and everyone around was saying that if you have $5,000, you survive. If you don't, go ahead and die. You were worthless. That's too much for a person. Like, just think about it. To survive, it's just a crossing. You don't need to travel by plane. Just to cross the border, you need $5,000. And even to get those $5,000, you're going to pay someone or multiple people to help you get those in cash in new bills. So it cost each person of us around $7,000. And even more, those $5,000, it's only for you to cross, to get you to Cairo, maybe, like to the company's place in Cairo. That's it. Not a place, but even like the street that they were in. That's it. There's no help after. I'm going to tell you so much more when you learn about how we evacuated, like literally on the moment, that you're going to be literally mind blown about having to pay this much, but still you had to endure so much during your evacuation. With the fundraising, as I said, my friend Lena, she immediately helped us set up the fundraiser to evacuate 13 members of my family through this Rafah crossing to Egypt. And within less than a day, it was ready. She did everything she could to speed it up, to speed up the process of the donations. And right now, until this very now, I'm thankful, I'm grateful to her, to everyone who donated. Even with $5, there were some people who donated $5, and I am thankful, I'm grateful that this small amount had helped me, helped my family, helped my son evacuate. And without Lena, without these generous people, without God, we wouldn't have been able to leave or reach safety. Like, during this period, there were many things that I need to take care of. During the fundraiser, until it gets enough money to sign up, to put our names on a waiting list, we had to handle some legal matters for my son, for Naif. Any person or any child under the age of 18 needed approval from both parents to leave the country. I'm his mother, of course, but because his father was murdered, so we needed permission from his grandfather, my late husband's father. I had to meet with him, with his family, my mother-in-law, and the whole family to explain everything carefully. And believe me when I tell you this, it was the hardest for them to agree. It was very difficult for them to agree because they had already lost their son. And the idea of letting Naif leave, it was extremely hard for them. At the end, they approved for his safety. And I remember how much his grandmas cried and hugged him, how much she hugged him at that time, thinking that, oh my God, I might not see you again, or because you're leaving. It was too emotional. And he himself was thinking, like, what's going on? I haven't told him yet because I didn't want to give him hope when I still, until this very day, like until that time, I didn't know if we're going to make it or not. Now, before even collecting the full amount of evacuation, we faced many challenges, of course, but one of which was like we've gathered money only for 4 people to evacuate. It was generous. Even for us, it was good. It was a really positive intake on the situation. But it was the time to decide who would go first. Everyone was like, I was saying that my parents should go first. My brothers were like, every female in the family should go first. My father was like, no, the kids needs to go first. We didn't know who's going to go first, but my family, my parents, my father and my mother chose that me, my son, have to go first, along with my 3 brothers who would help us, who would protect us. They knew how hard it would be for a single parent to travel alone and wanted to make sure that we were safe. Another reason was because they said that if we, I mean my parents, if we are the ones to evacuate first, we wouldn't be able to provide for ourselves and for you back in Gaza. If we let the younger generation, as they said, to go and evacuate first, like you would be able to provide for yourselves and for us. You would be able to find jobs and provide. And it was really hard. But after all, we found that it's the best thing to do. So we agreed. And another challenge came up. Like I'm telling you, it's a series of challenging. Like after getting the enough money for 4 people, and even Lena had pressured and insisted on having more funds, enough for another person or for my kid, about $250, which is $2,500 for my son as well. So that this would be me, my son, and my 3 brothers, my 3 younger brothers. So at that time, we started thinking and trying to find a way to transfer the funds to Egypt, to my uncle in Egypt, so that he would go take our documents, which is the IDs and my son's birth certificate, to the company to sign us up or put our names on a waiting list to pay the $5,000 per person. And we had to send cash, as I said, in new US dollars bills to Egypt, to my uncle, because the company didn't accept anything else. And they would even go further and check one bill at a time. So it's like for me, 5,000, and my 3 brothers, that's 15 and 5, that's $20,000. And my son, that's $22,000 and $500. They need to make sure with each bill, it needs to be new. They would see each one, they need to check. And if one is not new, they would tell them, go back, find new ones, and then come back to me to sign. Like, we would lose time and effort for signing up. And to get there, I'm telling you, we found someone who's a trader in Egypt to receive the money, to receive the funds. And to tell you that it took almost a month for him to receive the money, number one, the funds, and number two, to withdraw the money from the bank. A month. We're talking a month of hardships in Gaza. We're talking about a month of not knowing if you're going to survive or not. And for him to give it to my uncle. And during that time, my friend Lina has collected more donations for another 2 people that she contacted some people she already knew in Egypt to send them, like, I don't know, she had a way to get us the other funds for these 2 people to give to my uncle. And then we had to determine who those 2 people would be. We were all talking about my parents. You 2 need to get out first, but like with us, because we haven't already registered yet. So we're going to have to register not only me and my brothers and my son, it would be another 2 as well. My parents refused again because I had another sister who was engaged and her fiance. They decided that these 2 need to evacuate first. And we had to send their documents as well. And all of us registered at last, like literally after a month. At this time, the ones who registered, like to put the names on the waiting list, it was like literally my 3 siblings, my 3 brothers, my son, myself, and my sister and her fiance. So it was about 7.
The Rafah crossing, Gaza's only door to the outside world, became a symbol of both hope and despair. Thousands waited for their names to appear on evacuation lists, never knowing if tomorrow would be their turn. For Noor, the journey south, the fear of being bombed along the way, and the wait at the border marked the end of one life and the uncertain beginning of another.
So now we're waiting. We're starting to wait for our names, for the company to tell us that tomorrow we're going to evacuate to cross the border. And thankfully, I'm telling you, like, Lina did everything she could to speed up the process. I'm not lying. Because from the moment, like literally, the moment that we registered our names on the waiting list, a week later, she had my parents registered on the waiting list with the funds. And another week, like a week later, after my parents, she had my sister, her husband, and her children registered as well. I'm telling you, when I say I'm grateful, I'm thankful, it's not enough. Lina is located in the US. She's Palestinian, who is an entrepreneur, and she owns a stitching company. She loves tatreez, and I can tell you enough, like how good she is, how sweet she is. Like everything that has happened till this very day, it's thanks to Allah and thanks to her, of course. From that moment that we registered, like my parents, my sister and her family, because of the large number of people waiting, like the large number on the waiting list, it took us weeks or even a month or so before our turn came. And during this time, we also had to arrange housing in Egypt. We contacted my uncle, who helped us like find an apartment where our entire family could stay together until we tried to figure out what to do next. It was a long search. Literally, it was very long to find a suitable place that can fit our budget and to accommodate everyone. And to think about it, me, myself, thinking about leaving Gaza, it wasn't an easy thing for me. Like, after living there for 26 years, leaving my home, all my memories, including those of my late husband, it was heartbreaking. I constantly struggled with conflicting thoughts. Like, during this time, like before our names went up and said that tomorrow you need to leave, like during this time I was like, do I stay here or leave for my son's safety? Even after putting my name and my son's name on the waiting list, I was still wondering if I'm making the right choice. Like, how is it going to affect my future, my son's future, our well-being? Like, despite all the fear, like the uncertainty, the emotional pain that I was in, I had to prioritize like my son's future, my son's safety. And finally, the day came when we had to leave Gaza to cross the boarding, like the Rafah border. By the way, Rafah border, there are many people don't know this, but Rafah border has two parts. There's the Egyptian part and the Palestinian part. At that time, it was around like the 4th or 5th of May when we received the news that we would travel the next day. And the night before departure was extremely difficult. Usually when someone leaves his country, the first question you would ask, what did you pack? What are you going to take with you? I could only take my essential documents, the small bag of clothes that I already took from my own home, that I left, that I evacuated months ago. I already don't have enough. I already had only small bags of clothes, like for myself and for my son. Everything that I have left, everything that I have built, the life, the belongings, it was destroyed, literally destroyed. So in that moment, I had to leave, to think about, like, I'm gonna leave my home, I'm gonna leave the clothes, I'm gonna leave my income, my job that I already left before. But still, I thought that one day everything's gonna stop, there's gonna be a ceasefire, everything's gonna go back to normal. At that time, it felt like it's not gonna happen. It's way further from the truth, way further from reality. And right now I'm heading to the unknown. And that night I could not sleep. And I don't think that any of my family slept that night. I talked to my son. I prepared him for the journey. He didn't know what to feel. He was afraid. He was scared. He didn't know what to expect. I tried to explain that the world that we're going to, there would be no bombing, no missiles, like no fear. We would have food, endless food. We would have snacks. I would buy him even toys. We can rebuild our life. He started slowly like accepting the idea afterwards. And even he got excited after mentioning the snacks, the toys, and like what we're going to do after. He was 4 years old. At that time, just think about everything that he's been through. And for him, he was a little bit scared. Like, he was scared most of the times, and that's understandable from the things that we've endured, that we're enduring yet. like at that time. And to think about that, he didn't have snacks for a long time, and he didn't have new toys, and even the toys he had been asking about them, they were all destroyed. He had 3 bicycles, for God's sakes, and none of them survived. 3 bicycles. And not only the bicycles, they're just metaphoric, talking about the things that he had before, and now he has none. He used to ask all the time, like, and even at that time, he remembers what things I bought him, what his father bought him before, like a new set of clothes, even like some boots and things he asks for, like, where are my things? Where are my glasses? Why didn't we back our glasses with me, or my toys? And at that time, when I told him that we're going to have more toys, we can buy the same things again, we can have snacks, some chips, which we kind of were deprived from. We will have some food, some milk and eggs that he used to love that we're deprived from as well. He was a bit thrilled for the idea. And on that time, he was unaware of, like, maybe he was aware in an aspect, but me personally, I think I would look at him like maybe he understands, maybe he doesn't, because he's 4 years old. Of course, like the next day came and we said our goodbyes to my parents, my sister. It was difficult, as it might be the last time we saw them before our journey. But my mother recited Quranic prayers, prayed for each of us individually, asking for our safety. It was at, I guess, 5 or 6 a.m. We woke up, and like, because like my family, they were supposed to be evacuating maybe a week later because of how we registered their names on the waiting list. It kind of eased some of the emotional burden because they're going to be ready to travel after us. So it was a bit not easy per se, but it helped in many ways. We said our goodbyes, we hugged them, and I wish I hugged them more. But we left at around 6 a.m., 6:30, accompanied by a private car. It was arranged by my parents. And I went with my 3 brothers, like younger brothers, my sister and her fiance and my son. And the journey, let me tell you, like the journey from Deir al-Balah, which is in the south, to the crossing that is the southwest, but literally of Rafah, it showed me the scale of destruction in Gaza. The streets, houses, buildings, they were all damaged. They were destroyed. It was frightening. There was no safety. The journey itself, we were afraid that something might happen because no one can guarantee the safety of ourselves till we get to the crossing, the Rafah border. And it was really scary. I started even missing my parents within the journey. I was starting to think otherwise, like maybe this is not a good idea, I don't know. But we finally made it to the crossing safely, alhamdulillah. We had to take many different routes than the original because the streets like were very destroyed. And when we arrived at Rafah crossing, as I said, there is a Palestinian section and there's the Egyptian section. We first arrived at the Palestinian section, and the process itself, it was challenging. Many people were crowded there. They were carrying all their belongings. We had only our documents and a few personal items. Like my sister even gave us, before we leave, some blankets so that we put on ourselves if we feel a bit cold. That's it. Others would have many different personal items, like not only personal items, but like some cooking pots, some blankets, some even pillows and mattresses. They were taking everything they can. We ourselves, we evacuated from our houses long before, without taking all of this. They managed to do that. And I'm like, that's brave for you to take all of that. For real, they took mattresses, not just a mattress. Mattresses, like the ones who maybe haven't evacuated from their places, maybe the ones who were already from the south, maybe those managed to take their things with them. And even when we were in the Palestinian section of the Rafah border, my son's approval document, which is the approval document from my father-in-law, had not yet reached the authorities online due to internet issues. So everyone else had to leave in buses to go to the other section, the Egyptian section. And we waited. I'm telling you, when I say waited, it was 7 a.m. when we reached the Palestinian section, like the Palestinian part of the Rafah crossing. And we waited until around 12 noon for them to be able to get that approval document. And after that, they received the necessary documents. We were allowed to go on a bus to move to the Egyptian section. The bus was waiting for us to take us across. The distance was short, I tell you, but the moment I stepped onto that bus, I can tell you that I felt my heart lift. Fear was overwhelming. I kind of realized that I had truly lost Gaza at that moment. I prayed to God for our safety, for the end of the war, and that I could one day return to rebuild and to visit my husband's grave, which I had not been able to see before. The Egyptian section of the crossing was much better. I'm telling you, much, much better. The authorities allowed us to enter and wait. Those who had passports, who registered in the company with their passports, were helped first and moved more quickly. Around maybe 2 to 3 p.m., they already went on their ways on buses to Cairo. And for us, we only had IDs, which made the process slower and more difficult. And even food was limited at that time, in the border, because we were giving sandwiches, juice and water. And we could not buy anything else because we didn't have the local currency, like the Egyptian pounds, which made the day even harder. And I remember my son at that time was asking me to buy him a snack, which is chips, because we were deprived from it, the luxury of buying it or seeing it on shelves. And I remember it was the hardest thing for me to see that I can buy it, but I don't have the currency to do that. And while we were in the Egyptian section, we heard, literally while we were in that place, we heard shelling nearby, bombing nearby for a couple of times. It made us really scared that maybe we wouldn't be able to go ahead and cross. Maybe they're gonna send us back. We don't know. It was really scary. The bombs were literally around the section, the Palestinian section, which was, as I said, it wasn't that far. And the crossing itself is small. It's not that large. It's a land crossing. It's not an airport. It has only buses and cars. And at that moment, we were overwhelmed. We weren't sure if we could make it, but we had to wait. So we waited and waited and waited. And when I say I waited and waited and waited, it was a very long time, because having only IDs, the authorities needed to prepare a permit for us to enter Egypt. And it involved like checking fingerprints, like documents, taking our pictures. So we waited until around 12:30 at night, sitting on simple metal chairs, like bank chairs. Just think about it. We left my sister's apartment at 6:30 a.m. and we stayed in the crossing in Rafah border till 12:30 at midnight. And it wasn't easy at all. And my son slept on those like those metal chairs. The rest of us could hardly rest because we don't know like what's going to happen. And we saw that they would take like around 7 to 12 people at a time to help them into the buses to leave the crossing into Egypt. And we waited, and finally it was our time. And believe me when I say this, that we were the last people to leave the border. It was literally the last people, like, because it was 12:30 and we were the only ones left there. So we boarded a bus that would take us from Rafah border, the Egyptian part, to Cairo. And as we started leaving the crossing, I looked out the window and I saw many trucks. And I must add, it's many trucks. It's more than 100. It might be hundreds even of trucks carrying food, medical supplies, flour. They were all stopped at the border. It was overwhelming to think that while aid was available, it was literally just like miles away from Gaza, and people in Gaza could not access it. My mind was full of anger and disbelief, thinking how families had been deprived of food, medicine, and safety. My family, not myself, myself, my son, was deprived of food that was miles away, and I could not access that. Like they weren't allowed to enter Gaza. So food right now kind of rots in those trucks. On the border, they would have it rot on the border, then give it to Gazans. Like at that time and until this very day, I believe, and I strongly believe, that until this very day, there are many trucks on the border waiting. And I believe that there are many people who are trying to get aid into Gaza. They're funding those aids. They're donating to those aids, and still they're not allowed to enter Gaza. Like they're gonna rot. Don't you think that maybe letting Gazans have a little bit of food while being killed is better than being killed while being starved as well? Being deprived of the necessities of human being? Am I not human enough for me to have those necessities, to have food? There are people in the world who care about cats, dogs, animals. Aren't we as worthy of food as those? Why would those trucks be standing there and not being allowed to enter? Isn't it maddening? And for me to think at that time, okay, my parents have to endure a week or maybe more without these things. And even to look at my son next to me trying to sleep. And I'm looking at him and I'm like, you had to be deprived of all of your necessities as a child, as a 4-year-old. And all of those things were just miles away. But I had to take a deep breath, because who am I talking to? Who am I kidding? Like, I don't know. I just, at that moment, I was like, people are trying their best around the world to donate, to fund aid, but still that aid is not getting to Gazans. I'm like, oh my God, the inhumanity is indescribable. I had to try to stay hopeful, telling myself that, okay, it's maybe the beginning of safety. Don't think back. I know it was hard, and it is hard because I cannot do it, but still, I have to remind myself that I don't need to think about what I have endured. I have to think about what's coming, how to build the future for my son. The bus journey from that part to Cairo, it was long, very long, from about 12:30 a.m. to around 6:30 to 7 a.m. My son slept the whole time through, though it wasn't comfortably. I couldn't rest at all. Along the way, we stopped at a restaurant to exchange money and eat for the first time in months. I had not eaten proper protein since October, and it felt like a miracle to have meat again. I had kebabs for the first time in months. And even we look at food as if it was literally a luxury. It's a miracle that we are sitting in this restaurant in another country having kebabs. But I couldn't help but to think of my parents who aren't having the same. But one thought came to me, and like, okay, in a week or two, they're going to be here at the same time, at the same table, maybe having the same food. So I had to keep thinking positively. And even looking at my son, looking at the food, it was as if the first time he looks at meat. Before, he had it like lots of times because he was deprived of it for months. It was such a relief for me to look at him eating. Having the first bite was magical. Literally magical to see that we have plenty of plates in front of us, not just one or two that we all have to share. We have plenty of plates, and they are giving us more sodas, and the water, the first sip of water, the clean water, it was magical. It was as if I tasted heaven. And even we were talking to each other, and like, we need to buy some snacks for the way. Like, from this restaurant, it had like a stand full of snacks. And when we were trying some of those snacks, it was literally heaven. Just think about someone who was fasting for maybe a day or two or a week or two, and suddenly he starts having food after this whole fasting thing. It feels different. And because I was deprived, it feels more magical, let's say. And before even reaching Cairo, with the bus journey, literally to get to Cairo, I remember looking around. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't rest. I couldn't help but look at the amazing architecture that was around, comparing it to what I've seen, this destruction that I've seen through the journey from Deir el-Balah to the crossing. And at the same time, looking at people in their cars, people going to their jobs, people living their lives. It felt like entering another world. Like, everyone's driving safely. Like, experiencing this peace was so real. Like, it felt literally as if I am entering another world. I'm entering another planet. that's completely different from the war-torn environment that I have been living, that I left behind. It's undescribable, that feeling that I had. And to reach Cairo, it was one of the greatest things that I can tell, like, in my life. To see my uncle waiting for us, just seeing him made me feel I could finally cry. I'm relieved to be in a safe place. That's true, that's real. And from there, he took us to the apartment that he had arranged for us. And he was, along the way, he was telling us about the places around. He was telling us that this is something, and if you see something a little bit strange for us, he would describe it, tell us like what it's for, how people are here, how generous people are here, how hospitable they are. He was telling us about literally everything around until we've reached the apartment. And entering that apartment, I could hardly believe that finally my son and I, my brothers, my sister and her fiance made it alive. We're finally safe. For the first time in months, we're free from bombs, from fear, from uncertainty, from thinking of survival. Like, we literally have the idea of being free in a country or in an apartment. That was literally the changing point in our lives.
Crossing into Egypt was a turning point. For the first time in months, Noor and her son slept without the sound of war overhead. But safety carried its own weight. Relief tangled with fear, grief mixing with the unknown. For many refugee mothers, arrival does not mean arrival at peace. It means starting again, from nothing, carrying the memory of everything lost.
I can tell you that my first thoughts entering that apartment, it was feeling thrilled that I'm safe, that my son is safe. But at the same time, full of fear, not from the environment as it was a different kind of fear, a fear of the unknown. I still don't know what I'm gonna do. I still don't know how I'm gonna provide for my son. I still don't know what I'm gonna do with my life. I still don't know how I'm gonna survive even in this environment. But I can tell you, feeling this freedom of fear of getting like attacked or being hit with a missile, it made me feel a little bit safe, a little bit like finally I can rest a little. And at that time, I remember even everyone went and tried to sleep. I couldn't. I literally could not sleep, even though that I had been awake for the past 24 or even more hours. I could not sleep. My son could not sleep because he kind of slept through the night, but still, I couldn't. I just like sat in the living room of that apartment, looking around, literally looking around me, and like, I'm in disbelief and thinking that finally I can feel or have space for grief. Because as I said before, I didn't have time to grieve. I didn't have time to cry. I didn't have time to think about the situation that we were in, to think about the hardships that we had endured or had been enduring before. And I remember sitting there for almost 5 hours before before my brothers and my sister woke up, and before my uncle came back, trying to tell us what to do, how to reach everywhere, because we don't have like the SIM cards in Egypt. The SIM cards we had was Palestinian and it didn't work, so we couldn't like talk. We didn't have internet access still. Like there were many things to figure out, but still, for those 5 hours, I was literally sitting, looking at the wall and not knowing what to do, what to think, how to feel. It was really hard. So what I remember that I did, I tried to occupy myself as much as I can from that moment, which is with cleaning, trying to find something to do, not having some time to think, because if I think, I might burst into tears, and I don't want that, because I'm finally free. My son is finally free, and I can't bring back all those memories, bring back all those feelings to him, show him that these are still with us. I don't want him to feel sad at all. I feel that's enough. It is enough. It was really enough for us.
This has been part 3 of Noor's story. From losing Khaled to crossing Rafah with her son, Noor has carried us through one of the hardest passages a mother can face, leaving behind not just a home, but a history built by generations. In part 4, Noor will share what came next, arriving in Egypt, adjusting to life in exile, and the unseen weight carried by women who become heads of household after displacement. We hope you'll stay with us for the final chapter of her story. You've been listening to The Archive Speaks, a podcast from the Refugee Archive, a global center dedicated to preserving and amplifying the voices of displaced female head of households. If this story moved you, help us share it. Support our cause by finding us on any social media platform at The Refugee Archive. And join us, because when more of us listen, more of them speak.